Virabhadrasana is another posture that shows up twice in the practice. First in Surya Namaskara B as a one breath, one movement part of Surya Namaskara B, and then again as its own posture where we hold it for 5 breaths, and that comes later on in the standing portion of primary series. So if you're coming into it through Surya Namaskara B, or also as its own posture later on, we come from downward facing dog. And so you turn the left foot in to step the right foot forward, and that prepares the foundation for Virabhadrasana A. And so once you do this, always starting from the ground up, check in the alignment of the feet. You can have the heels in one line, where the heels of both feet are lining up, or you can have the heels on 2 parallel lines. So you bring that left foot out to the side a little bit. And so this just depends also on like the flexibility and the mobility we have in the hips, whether you want to have the heels in line or in 2 lines. So try both and see which one feels more comfortable in the hip joints. And so like any standing posture, we want to connect first into the feet, pressing the 4 corners of each foot down and away from each other. So that really starts to wake up the quad muscles, connect us into the floor, and then press down through the outside edge of the left foot, and that really wakes up the left leg. So it feels like this left thigh is moving away from the floor instead of collapsing down. So we press down into the floor through the feet to help us connect into the ground, root us down, and make the rest of the posture feel lighter and like we're lifting up away from the ground. But in order to lift up away from the ground, we need to first root down. So once we have the feet really firmly planted, we can start to lift the chest so that the chest is somewhere perpendicular to the ground. And then now let's talk about the hips a little bit. So the hips in Virabhadrasana A naturally want to be more at a diagonal, which is okay, and I think we should let them be there. Don't try to force the hips to be squared, because then you can kind of bother the hip joint. And over time, that can wear the hip joints. So let the hips be at a diagonal. Don't ever lock the hips. So if the hips want to move a little bit as we go into the full expression, let them move a little bit. Point is, don't force them to be squared. Let them be a little bit at a diagonal if they need to be, which most likely they will need to be. Unless you're like really, really flexible, then maybe it might feel comfortable to have the hips squared. But most people, for me, that doesn't feel comfortable. So you're here, you have the hips at a diagonal, and you're rooting down through both feet, pressing the feet down and away from each other. And then eventually we have a stance where the knee is over the ankle and the thigh is parallel to the ground. So I have a pretty wide stance, and you can measure your stance according to that. So like, how wide do my feet need to be in order to get the knee over the ankle and the thigh parallel to the ground? And you're really working the quad. Like my quad's like super tired right now. So I'm going to show you modification. So modification would be to just make the stance shorter, and when you bend the knee to bring the knee over the ankle, you'll notice that the thigh isn't parallel, it's more at an incline, which is okay. It's a great way to like slowly work into this posture. And then as you bring the arms over your head, it's Ekam inhale arms, like we've talked about. And the arms over your head really give you this opportunity to feel the lifting sensation through the rib cage. So it feels like the rib cage lifts away from the pelvis as you keep rooting down through the feet. And you draw the lower belly in as you gaze up. So you want to feel this opposition of the feet rooting down and the arms reaching up, the rib cage reaching up. And then another piece here, if you want to deepen some of the hip extension work we're doing on the left side on this, for the right side, the left side of the hip is opening. You can drop the tailbone a little bit. But as you drop the tailbone, keep pressing through the outside edge of the left foot, and you'll really feel the front of this left hip start to open as you bend into the right knee. And that really helps you also, as you drop the tailbone, to counteract that with that feeling of the rib cage lifting up and reaching up through the hands. And so what that creates is this line that goes from the arch of the back foot, up the inside of the back leg, up through the front of that hip, up through the front of the torso, through the armpit, and then reaching up through the pinkies. So you feel that line going up and connecting down into the arch of the foot. Keep that arch lifted as the line moves up. So there's a lot happening, and this posture can be tricky. I see a lot of students have a hard time with figuring out the alignment of this posture. So it takes time, it takes a lot of mobility in the hips, a lot of strength in the legs, but once we can integrate all of these skills and find the center through that integration, it feels really nice to feel that rooting down, that reaching and lifting up. And remember, it's better to take a more accessible version, bringing the feet a little bit closer, and really feeling into all of those pieces, feeling into that line, moving up the leg, up through the arms. Feel that rooting down, reaching up to find integration. It's more important to find that than to find the full posture with the legs really far apart and you're really going into this beautiful 90-degree angle. But if your alignment is super off, then there's really no point of being there. Yeah? So integration over doing a posture that looks like how we think it should look like. Easier said than done.